I'm Phil Small. I'm a soil scientist, and I know about how to make biochar, how to use it, how to distinguish charcoal and ash, and how to make good quality biochar. And so this is March 4th in 2017. We're at the Flathead Valley Community College. And this room was open, and the video was available, so I thought I'd give it a try and see how we are at producing a biochar video. So I became interested in biochar in 2005 on reading a book, 1491 by Charles Mann. And this book was about what North and South America were like pre-Columbian. The book's title was 1491. And towards the end of the book, he talks about how there was a lot of people supported in the Amazon, millions of people. And as a soil scientist, I was trained to view the Amazon jungle as a wild land of very poor soils, could not support a large population. And so this idea that there could be a lot of people there kind of runs counter to how people understand how the Amazon works. And the reason that they were able to support a lot of people, the clue was in the black soils of the Amazon. And these soils are highly productive. They're recognized throughout history. During our Civil War, United States Civil War, when people left the United States to find a different place to grow cotton and still be able to have their slave economy, they found these very dark productive soils in the Amazon basin. And later when Henry Ford was looking for land to grow trees for rubber, for his rubber tires, he found these black soils. Nobody really asked where these soils came from, which is what I'm interested in as a soil scientist, but they identified vast areas of them, very highly productive soils. So that ran counter to the understanding of how the soils work in the Amazon. And there actually is an eyewitness account for a very large population in the Amazon. I'm sorry, I don't recall the explorer's name, but he was part of an expedition up into the Andes and was sent down to lower elevations to forage and couldn't make it back up to his group because it was just too treacherous to get back up. Figured it was only a short way back to the Atlantic Ocean. And so he went down to the Amazon and floated out. It turned out to be a lot farther than what he anticipated. But during part of that journey, he recounts in his journals how he was attacked by a vast quantity of warriors, and that there was buildings on both sides of the Amazon River, a city on both sides, and that this army was so well supported that they even had musical accompaniment while they harassed this party for days. 40 years later, they went back and looked for the civilization, and there was nothing there. This was the beginning of the legend of the 7 cities of gold. And people just chalked it up to him trying to feather his own reputation, trying to make himself more important than he actually was. And it was dismissed that there were those people. When we discovered these soils, an area almost as large as the size of France within the Amazon basin of darkened soils, darkened by charcoal, it really got a small group of soil scientists very interested in what this might mean. Analyzing the soil, they could see it had a lot of charcoal in it. And this was the beginning of the interest in something we're calling today biochar, which is charcoal that's made with the intent of using it to revitalize soils. How those worked in the Amazon. The Amazon is a very old, very weathered soil, high clay content, low nutrient capacity. The charcoal enhanced soils have got a lot of phosphorus in them, retained from the fish and food that these folks were eating. And those soils, the charcoal has somehow allowed those soils to retain that phosphorus. And the other interesting thing is that these soils have got a different soil biology in them that they're supporting. These soils are still productive hundreds of years later. and to the point where these are the soils that are sought after by the cities when they're trying to find soil for landscaping around their high-class hotels and places like that. They will dig the soil up, sell it, and move it to these places. That, for a number of years, the soil science community felt that this was unique to the Amazon, that it really didn't apply to anything but highly weathered tropical soils. But here in the United States, we realized that our plain soils, the tall grass prairies, very black soils, with an observed history of having been burned frequently, that these soils are also very high in charcoal. When I went to school to get my degree in soils in the 1970s, I was taught not to expect charcoal in soils. We were taught that those black colors were due to the root actions, the root exudates, and the massive amount of root production in a healthy grass ecosystem, and that these are what darken the soils through a process called melanization. Now that we have the analytical capabilities to distinguish charcoal and pyrolytic carbon in soils, we now see that many of the soils, the organic carbon content, over half of that is fire-derived, that these soils are the color of charcoal because they have quite a bit of charcoal in them. That they're highly productive. We've always thought of our prairies in North America as being this incredible soil resource because of the grass prairies. In actuality, this is a fire-derived landscape. These rich soils that has made our nation so great is due to Neolithic burning practices, tens of thousands of years of people advancing with fire sticks, burning the environment, whether to manage the natural environment in various ways. This is a gift. Our black soils are a gift from past civilizations. And we only put this together because we observed the burning when pioneers came into the Midwest, where soil science started 200 years ago in the Ukraine with the same very black soils, tall grass prairie. By the time that Vasily Dukachev started looking at what are the natural reasons we have different soils in different areas, the memory of that burning was lost. But those soils are also highly laden in charcoal. And those soils, those black soils, stretch from the Ukraine all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So there is, this is something that is of great interest to the soil science community, but not something that we're actually doing any extensive research on. Research in agriculture and in soils is driven by commercial interests, by government interests, and we don't really have an interest in understanding charcoal in soils. So the mythology that soils cannot accumulate charcoal, that when fire burns it leaves only ash, that mythology is still in place with the soil science profession, and it's going to stay that way for decades without a doubt. But for those of us who are interested to the degree that we're trying to reproduce some of these results, we have learned quite a bit in the 12 years since I first became interested in biochar.